Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Binh, and joining me is Senh Duong. So, Senh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hey, good morning. Let's jump right in. Let's see. We had Paper Towns, Pixels, and Southpaw opening last weekend,
Mhm.
and we made some predictions.
Yeah, we did.
And from the results, it seems like we just made stuff out of thin air.
Okay, pixels were way off. We're like, we
Yeah.
were thinking 45 million, 40 million range.
Yes, 45. Yes.
Well, it ended up with almost half of that, 24 million. Which is even worse than Jack and Jill.
I believe that movie still has a 0% on the tomato meter, right?
I'm not
Close
sure.
to it. All right. Well,
Somewhere down there.
Yeah, it was one of the worst movies of all time, or worst reviewed movies of all time, I believe. Oh, hey, let's go down the list, and we'll get to the new openings last weekend. Let's start with number one, Ant-Man coming in number one again, repeating, but it has a 56% drop off from the previous week and made 24.7 million for a total of 106 million in 2 weeks.
Drop off is actually in line with a couple other Marvel films, like Thor and Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just the 57% drop off. So it's actually not too bad. At 106 million after 2 weeks with a budget of 130 million is very profitable.
Okay, so what do you put the lifetime domestic gross as? Like somewhere in line with Thor as well?
It's behind Thor and Captain America, so probably, I don't know, 150, 160, which is pretty good for a third tier comic book movie.
Right, you made your point that point in the last podcast.
Yeah.
Again, this is just the beginning for Ant-Man, and we'll see more of him. And I think the worldwide gross for Ant-Man is what? Let's see. It's 120 million. No, that's for foreign overseas, but for the total worldwide is 226. Budget is 130, so it'll make us money back. Yeah. And as we know, we'll see Ant-Man tied in with other superhero movies, and they'll just raise the stock, becoming third tier, maybe jump to the second tier, and maybe first tier.
I think by the way it's performing, it's kind of the second tier. It's done nearly as well as Thor and Captain America, so it's not far behind.
Right. And as you say, this is a third tier character. Nobody knows who Ant-Man is. Thor, Captain America, but Ant-Man is the comic books that's sitting, in the corner.
Yeah, right.
Just pass by it and move on to something else.
Yeah, and it is well reviewed, so.
Right. And I believe this the movie, there was some trouble production, right? Joe Cornish was supposed to write and direct it with Edgar Wright, but I think there was some disagreement. Pretty much Marvel kicked him out.
Yeah, disagreements, creative differences.
Marvel's way or the highway.
Yeah, although Marvel has been so consistent, and I do see. Remember last week we were talking about the Pixar parallels. One thing that I noticed also with Marvel is they're not afraid to kick out a director if they see, there's trouble looming. Kind of like Pixar, when they see that a film isn't working, they're not afraid to let a director go and jump in and try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Except for when it's John Lasseter.
Right. No one say no to him.
Yeah. I think Thor 2, they fired the woman director like midway or shortly before they started filming.
Yeah, during pre-production. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and Thor 2 ended up turning out decent, and Ant-Man turned out decent. Turned out pretty good considering. When the director was fired midway through. Mm-hmm. Or during production or pre-production.
Yeah, it was during pre-production. Like I think Joe Cornish had this the script written for quite a while. Had this his own idea what the movie is about. Marvel differs.
Right.
As the movie was getting close to production, I guess Joe Cornish wasn't willing to budge on his views, and I guess that's how they pretty much kicked him out. Of course, the parting was amicable on both sides.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Right. Yeah. It's a very good start, actually. And considering Paul Judd is not
Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd. Yeah, I knew something was wrong with it. Paul Rudd isn't exactly biggest draw at the box office.
But he's another TV guy who made the jump, right?
Paul Rudd?
Wait, no.
No.
He's
He was in Clueless, and then
he's a Judd Apatow regular.
yeah, and then he became a Judd Apatow regular, and he kind of turned into an A-lister, kind of like on the edge of the A-list. And then that whole Joe Apatow group kind of, after their peak, he slowly kind of went down a little bit.
Right, he has quite the resume. Well, not quite the resume, but it's more like secondary characters. Like he was in Romeo plus Juliet. I think that Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Like he was in Clueless, 40-year-old version, the Anchorman movies, Knocked Up.
Yeah, he also headlined a few of his own movies that did pretty well. I mean, This Is 40 did decent. Made like 67.5 million, and he's the top billed person in that movie. And then he was also in Role Models, which did pretty well, and he headlined that movie. He was kind of on the edge of the A-list for a little bit.
Okay.
After Knocked Up kind of turned everyone involved in that movie into kind of stars.
All right, so that movie knocked everyone's stock up a bit. I think Knocked Up. I think who was in Knocked Up?
Seth Rogen.
I know the female character. Oh, Katherine Heigl.
Yeah,
she was supposed to break out, but
she was breaking out. But I think the stuff off camera, she's a bit controversial.
Yeah, people were saying that she was difficult to work with, which is kind of code for the B word.
yeah. You hear about that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, a great second weekend for Ant-Man, which we know is a third character, and I guess people are excited about Ant-Man now.
Yeah, it did way better than I had anticipated.
Right, and the end game for this is like more comic book sales, right, and more rides for featuring Ant-Man.
Yeah. Well, I think probably more films.
But okay, let's move on to number 2.
Pixels. Yeah, Pixels. At 24 million, it's definitely continuing Adam Sandler's diminished draw at the box office. And at 88 million, it's going to have a rough time reaching 88 million, especially since reviews. I mean, poor reviews has never deterred Adam Sandler's fans to see his films. Most of his films are pretty poorly reviewed, except for the few when he's involved with Joe Apatow or some other A-list director. I think the cinema score was only a B, so people aren't too high on it either. So I can see this dropping off pretty quickly.
Right. Clarification there. Yeah, the 88 million figure you threw out was the budget.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Well, the thing is, like, we both were pegging the movie to make in the 40s, like 45 million. The awareness for this movie was high. They were having commercials in sporting events, etc. They have, NBA basketball players playing against these pixels, these like Pac-Man, Centipede, etc. You could say that Pixels is not an Adam Sandler movie, not his brand of comedy.
Yeah,
a general comedy, and kids these days, even though they know who Pac-Man is or what it is, right? His games is not huge. Like Donkey Kong, for example, all these video game characters are from the 80s.
Yeah, well, that's what they're banking on. They're banking on nostalgia. They're banking on people like us taking our kids to see it.
Right. So. But this is more like a kids movie, right? They want to appeal to kids, but this is using video game characters for the adults, from when the adults were kids. So you need to use characters. If you're appealing to the target demographic, you need to use more recent video game characters.
It could be, but that would be kind of besides the point. It was based on a short, like a 2.5 minute short. I mean, these things you don't know. That's what I said. If it's done right, it works really well. Like Jurassic World, most people weren't expecting that film to do that well, but for some reason, that's able to get the adults who saw the original Jurassic Park, who ended up taking their kids to see it, and that became such a huge phenomenon in the summer. It's now the third highest grossing film of all time domestically and worldwide. And sometimes if it's done well, it can work. And with Pixels, this 80s nostalgia could have worked, but I guess maybe the execution wasn't as well done as Jurassic World.
Well, the movie has an 18% on Tomatoes,
on Rotten Tomatoes.
which is
Jurassic World
pretty
at least
terrible.
Jurassic World was around 70% on the tomato meter, which is pretty good for the fourth film in the series. So
Yeah, and related. I think Sony Pictures is making or Sony Pictures Animation is making an emoji movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure
What do we know? What do we know, Sen? I mean, we were wrong.
Yeah, we were completely off.
A couple of these movies. So,
well,
what do we know?
Part of it is the movie, though. I saw it last week, and all the arcade video game related scenes were really well done. Especially the centipede sequence was really well done. And I was entertained during all those sequences. The only problem is in between those sequences is pretty much fill in. And when you think about it, it was based on a 2.5 minute short, and there were a lot of filler elements in the movie.
Let me stop you there. Pirates of the Caribbean. It was based on a theme park ride.
Yeah.
So that's the thing to draw from.
Yeah, that's an example of how to do it well. Have a story that keeps things moving. Whereas Pixels, the things that are supposed to work, like the video game elements, do work pretty well. It's just that in between those sequences, it didn't work at all. It's just kind of dead air. I thought, hey, maybe in between these, exciting video game scenes, you would have Adam Sandler and Kevin James doing stupid humor and entertaining people. But no, it just feels like dead space pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I mean about Pixels not being one of Adam Sandler. It's not an Adam Sandler movie, right? Because Adam Sandler movie, they are review proof. People go to watch the movie regardless of what critics are saying about it. But this one is different, it seems.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that, though. This definitely, the star in Adam Sandler movies, he's the star. In Pixels, the arcade games were the star, not Adam Sandler. He's kind of a secondary guy. And it's interesting reading the reviews, because when you read the reviews, they say, hey, Adam Sandler looked like he's just phoning it in. He doesn't even care. And it's kind of true. In this movie, he's almost like the second Bill character. And when you look at the posters and the marketing feature these classic 80s arcade games rather than Adam Sandler. Like you said, that's probably one of the problems too. This is not your typical Adam Sandler movie. He's kind of a side character.
Exactly, and if you're marketing toward kids, then these are not the characters they grew up with. No. Even though there's nostalgia involved, these games, I don't know. I'm not sure how much nostalgia is involved in this, because they know these characters, but do they really like these characters? And they are kind of like destroying the world.
Yeah. Pac-Man's a bad, yeah. And so I thought the premise was interesting. It's just that between these sequences, there's nothing going on.
So basically, you're saying that it works better as a 2-minute short.
The 2-minute short does work really well.
Okay. All right.
It's just that when they set out to make this movie, they were focused mainly on these 80s arcade games, rather than putting together a story that they'll actually work out well. It's more like, okay, we'll have this centipede sequence, the Pac-Man sequence, the Donkey Kong sequence, and then in between, let's fill it in with these comedians making random humor to keep things moving. But it didn't seem like they had a story that ties everything together really well and keeps everything moving. It's just like, okay, we got these video game sequences. Now let's just throw Adam Sandler and Kevin James and Josh Gad and let them do their thing to fill in some time and call it a movie.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, extremely disappointing outing. I think everyone pretty much were predicting like a 40 million-ish opening, but just half that for some reason.
Yeah.
And the reason we laid out or probably like, hey, the nostalgia factor is not there, and it's not an Adam Sandler movie.
And a lot of people also peg this as hey, Adam Sandler's fan base is getting smaller and smaller. He's not the draw he used to be, which is true. But if Adam Sandler goes back to making, comedies that only cost like 40 million to make, he still can open films in the mid-20s. And if you can consistently open films in the mid-20s, and the budget of your film is only 40 million, you're going to have really profitable movies. The budget for this film is a lot higher than his other films. This budget for this film is 88 million. And like you said, it's not a typical Adam Sandler movie. A typical Adam Sandler movie only costs about 40 million to make. So if he goes back to making $40 million productions, his films will still be very profitable, even though his fan base has been diminished. He can still pack them in. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I'd see. I've been waiting for Adam Sandler to fall for a long time, but I have yet to see it. He might have this one of these occasional duds. Even Jack and Jill, right?
Yeah.
Made 74 million domestic, 149 million worldwide.
Exactly.
So
he's still a decent draw.
Yeah. These are the movies that he are known for. That's the reason why people go and watch. It's not something like Pixar where he plays this guy. I mean, it's like
the secondary character.
Yeah, or when he tries to become respectable. That's what I'm saying. Like something like Blended, for example, that comedy that didn't do very well. I mean, it's just that when people want to go to see him make these, do stupid stuff.
Yeah, people just want
situations,
Yeah, people just want to see him goof off and do silly stuff and laugh and something not too heavy.
Right. So those are his movie, and those are the people that he appeals to. So
not a guy who's saving the world. Type of
guy. Or try to appeal to like a broad range of demographics.
Yeah, in the film, he's supposed to be some genius who can recognize these patterns from these video games, and he's just like Adam Sandler. I can see the part of him that plays video games all day long, but not a guy who recognizes these complicated patterns. That's my only suspension of disbelief. Like, I'll give it to them. In order for the story to work, sure. I'll accept the fact that Adam Sandler is a genius.
You know what? I think we spend too much time on pixels.
Let's move to
and the movie doesn't deserve this much time. It's just that it failed us. That's what I want to say. We were going for 45, but it failed us. Made us look bad.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we should trash Adam Sandler some more.
All right, let's move on to number 3, Minions. 22.1 million, 55.1% drop off. So it's dropping off pretty quickly. But still, after 3 weeks, it has already made 262 million. It's already a super mega hit. And at a relatively low budget of only 74 million.
Wow.
And it looks like you'll probably make it to 300 million domestically. Worldwide, it's already at 760 million.
It surpassed the second Despicable Me movie worldwide.
Has it?
I think so. Let me see. Let me take a quick look. Let's see. Despicable Me 2 worldwide gross. No, not yet. It's 970. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it still has a couple hundred million here and there.
I wonder now how they're going to approach the franchise now. Will they make more Despicable Me's and more Minions movies? Or will they just continue on with Despicable Me 3?
I think they will do Despicable Me 3, but they will also make Despicable
Minions 2.
Minions 2, because why not, right? I mean, they can.
Yeah, why not? When you have 2 of these things that are grossing you like $1 billion worldwide.
Right. So I mean, these 2 are really independent of each other, right? They can do, they can go as far back as, here's another instance where they try to latch on to another bad guy, and the storyline could also take place, like a true spin-off is where they can have a second thing. They could go on their own adventure while something else is happening on at the same time. All these possibilities.
Right, or they can just continue on because at the end of Minions, they finally met Gru as a kid.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So so they can continue on as it's the Minions and young Gru, and then the Despicable Me 2 is older Gru with the Minions.
Yeah, the great thing about this is like once you exhaust the Despicable Me storyline, they can have the Minions to jump off on. They can introduce a new character, bad guy to extend the franchise.
Right, that's true. Then they have a Star Wars thing. They have. They have the Despicable Me thing moving, and then they have the Minions, which is like a prequel, and then they can have a thing afterwards.
Hey, you never know. We'll talk.
Well, when your movies are making like $1 billion worldwide, they're like, why not?
Yeah. I'm sure. Like I say, if we can think it, someone's already working on it.
And the great thing about with Universal is they're able to make these movies very cheaply. 74 million. It's the same amount they spent in the last in Despicable Me 2. I'm actually pretty surprised by that, because the first film, Despicable Me, cost like over 100 million, and for the second, even though it was a huge, massive success, they decided to cut the budget for the second one. You usually don't see that happen. You usually see the budgets going up, especially when a film has been successful. But they kept the budget low, and they continue to keep it low. Just goes to show that, hey, you don't have to constantly throw money at it in order for it to make money. If you have a good concept, it'll work out.
Yeah, it's possible that all the assets have been created, so they don't need to, have new drawings, for example.
That's one thing that they can take advantage of, but it's the same thing with live action too. Like, when you make a movie and it's been successful, you think, hey, you still have all those sets that you can reuse, but a lot of times they don't reuse all the sets because they need to go on new adventures, and then because it's a huge success, everyone wants more money for the second one, and that's why the budgets usually balloon. Whereas with Despicable Me and now Minions, they're able to convince everyone to just, hey, we're gonna pay you the same. We're not going to do too much new stuff, and we're just going to keep the budget at 74 million. Whoever negotiated everything is doing a pretty good job of keeping, the budget low. Because, especially after after every Despicable Me, they could, everyone could have asked for more money. Everyone could have said, hey, we want to do something bigger and better. It's always bigger.
Well, here's the thing. Like the people who voiced the Despicable Me movies didn't really return for Minions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
so they don't have to pay them.
But with Despicable Me 2, people did return.
Right. So I assume that the budget was higher in that one, right?
No. That's what I mean. The surprising thing was the budget was cut on the second film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the first Despicable Me cost over 100 million. The second Despicable Me, surprisingly, only cost about 70 million.
You're right. 76 million.
Yeah.
Despicable Me 2.
Usually you see like any successful franchise, they just keep on adding more and more money to the budget. So, Universal, for some reason, is able to keep their costs down. The only other film I see this happening for is the Meatball movies, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Mm-hmm.
But that one is understandable because the first film, I think it made like 120 million or something total, and it cost about that much. So for the second film, they chopped the budget to about 70-something million. That's the only other film I've seen it done for where, in terms of animation, where they actually cut the budget despite the first film being pretty successful.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on. Okay, let's go to number 4, Trainwreck. Made 17.3 million over the weekend, a 42.5% drop. 61.5 million over 2 weeks. And this movie was marred by that shooting in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that affects the box office in general.
Yeah, me neither. Probably a little bit, but 43% drop off isn't too bad. And at a budget of only 35 million, it's already made about 62 million total. And it's going to make more in the following weeks. Although, some people said, hey, Amy Schumer is now an A-lister. I think it's too early because this is only one film.
Right.
Kind of like Bridesmaids, everyone was thinking Kristen Wiig is now an A-lister. but turned out it was Melissa McCarthy. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we both weren't very high on Trainwreck, but it I guess it blew our expectations. I mean, I think we were saying 15 or so, right? Or I was saying 15.
I
But
was
then
probably saying even lower.
yeah, and then it went on to have a 30 million opening. So let's say, who is Amy Schumer? You know, she's this TV person who made the jump to big screen, but you know, the movie is directed by Judd Apatow. It's written by Amy Schumer. And you know, like, I don't know who she is. Okay, and then like Bill Hader, he's a secondary character, you know, in a way. Right? Although it has LeBron James, but I don't know. You don't go to watch a movie or comedy for LeBron James.
Yes, I wouldn't put Amy Schumer on the A list yet until she can have another kind of performance like Trainwreck.
Right, you have to do it consistently, and then say, okay, yeah, we need to hire this person. You know, that person can do these things.
Right. Let's move on to number 5. Another new film starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a boxing drama directed by Antoine Fuqua. It grossed 16.5 million, which is pretty good at a budget of just 30 million.
Yeah, this is another movie that I was very wrong on. Excuse me.
What were you predicting?
I was saying 25.
Oh, I was saying 15, right?
You were saying 15, right? So I thought that there might be a sizable African American audience for this movie, but I guess not. You know.
Well, you know, sure, there's rap music and it's about boxing and it's, you know, directed by a black director, but the lead is, you know, Caucasian, and then the guy that he's fighting against is you know, Latino. I'm not sure how that works. Sure, they have 50 Cent, but he's more of a secondary character.
Right.
And there's Forrest Whitaker too, but they're not the main, you know, the main attraction of the movie. You know, 16.5 million isn't too bad. It's kind of in the Jake Gyllenhaal range when he does a mainstream movie. And I saw it last week. Its tomato meter is 57%. I agree with that. I mean, better than okay, but not good. It's one of those films where I feel like they had all these plot points that they need to get to, and they rushed through all of them. You know, they're like, okay, we have to show this guy, he's the champ, and you know, he's suddenly went bankrupt, and they don't really show how he got to that point. They just kind of rushed through it. And then there are lots of sequences like that where, like, for instance, when his daughter was put into foster care, she hated him. A couple months later, suddenly she decided that she loved him again. And I'm just like, well, hey, how did she go from hating him to loving him without anything happening in between? There were a lot of sequences like that where they have these plot points that they needed to get to, and they just kind of got to them without explaining how that happens. During certain court scenes where they're like, well, we have to keep your daughter in foster care for, you know, another 30 days until you can show us that you know, your life is a little bit more stable. And I'm like, he didn't really do anything differently than the first month. But suddenly they're like, "Oh, you're stable. You're stable now. You can have your daughter back." I'm like, "Well, he's been doing that since the beginning."
Right.
But they needed to take another 30 days away from him so that they can show him training and working out and getting ready for the fight. But you know, in terms of like, hey, you know, stability, he didn't do anything differently than when his daughter was taken away from him. So I feel like, you know, the film was through a lot of these things without explaining anything or without showing you.
It is one of those movies where you need a director's cut. You think the movie or the script was way longer, right? And then they need to cut out all these things to make time.
Yeah. I think one of the things with the movie, it does move. The pacing is pretty good. Things do move along. And like you said, I suspected a lot of this character development stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. You know, like how his daughter suddenly developed from hating him into wanting to be back with him. Like that part was probably ended up in the cutting room floor. There were other similar elements in the film that I feel like they kind of, because of time or because they rushed through things, things ended up on the cutting room floor.
I read that you know, this movie might get Jake Gyllenhaal a Oscar nomination. You think this will do it?
You know what? They might give it to him just because they feel like he's due, and this is a good enough film And it's a very good performance, but I do feel it's a little bit, just a tiny bit. One note, he constantly has this like he's beaten down look, and sometimes I feel like, hey, he's gone through a lot. He should be a little bit up more. He's not, but he constantly has that like, oh man, I've gone through so much.
Life is so unfair to me.
Yeah. And sometimes you feel like, well, he's gone through all this. He's a little bit more developed now, right? So he should be not cheerier, but a little bit more stable. His voice shouldn't be I'm still hurting from the first fight. Otherwise, it's pretty solid.
All right, so let's move on to number 6, Paper
Sure.
Towns, 12.5 million in its opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It is by the same guy who wrote The Fault in Our Stars.
Right, and if you look at how well The Fault in Our Stars did, I think it grossed over 50 million on its opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Then you would consider this a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the budget, it only cost 12 million to make, and it's already made more than that on its opening week. If you just base it on pure numbers, and if you only base it on this film by itself, it's a success.
Oh, right. I mean, the budget is low, like you say, and there is some. You can go far with tying it in with The Fault in Our Stars with this movie. Like I said in the last podcast, I don't see this movie, even though it looks like it's one of those typical Cameron Crowe movies. I think, this female character who like pulled the guy out of his doldrums or whatever, saying, "Hey, yeah, let's take more risk, live a little, and come find me. I'll leave clues around for you to find me." and you'll be the better out of it, etc., etc. So,
in other words, a less crazier version of Gone Girl.
Yeah, kind of. But Gone Girl is a different movie. But
but when you watch the trailer, it does kind of feel like it though, because in Gone Girl, the wife disappeared and she left all these clues for people to find her.
Yeah, that's true. But Gone Girl is a more darker movie.
Exactly.
This is more like
right.
I just left and I
feel good movie.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody, so come find me.
The interesting about Paper Towns is what's kind of, I mean, this already made back its budget, but on Friday when it first opened, it made 6.3 million, which is even more than Southpaw. And based on its rating and based on its genre, after its Friday figure came out, people in the industry were expecting a 20 million opening for the weekend. But what happened was it dropped off precipitously on Saturday. It only made 3.5 million on Saturday, which is why it ended up with just 12.5 million total. The weird thing is it performed like a horror movie. Sometimes when you look at it, it is the teen audience, specifically teen girls. And that audience, they, like horror films, they rush out on the first day and then they kind of disappear throughout the weekend. And this has that kind of pattern, and which doesn't bode well for it at all in next week. It could leave theaters in a couple of weeks because the drop-off is so steep on Saturday.
Well, it has only a 12 million opening, and it's has like opened in over 3,000 theaters, more than Southpaw, and made less than Southpaw. And for 12 million opening, I'm sure they will cut the theater count. Even
if it's a 12 million opening, they will still keep it on just to see how it performs the next week. But this one is so troubling because it opens so huge on a Friday, and then it seems like all the fans who wanted to see it saw it on Friday, and the word of mouth isn't good enough or was bad. It kind of fell off the cliff on Saturday. You have to take a step back and go, well, the movie only cost 12 million, so it's going to make a profit. But still, based on its Friday figure, people were expecting a lot more. If you look at its pattern over the weekend, next week it looks like one of those films that'll have 70 or 75% drop off, like a horror film, like a really bad, terrible horror film.
Well, yeah, like I said in the last podcast, like Paper's Town doesn't have any stars to bring in the people. You know,
Well, but that's
it's
well,
just
it's
riding the coattail of the Fault in Our Stars.
well, yeah, that could be probably it. But the problem is it was able to draw in a crowd on Friday, so the kind of like the Fault in Our Stars had no stars back then too.
Well,
They were
Shailene Woodley was kind of big.
Yeah, well, she was just kind of emerging. It was kind of she was just kind of emerging because of Divergent. But even with Paper Towns, the fact that they opened so well on Friday means that they were able to draw people in already. So the
Yeah,
stars in
but
the film didn't matter. It's just that once they drew in those people, word of mouth must have been so bad, or people must have rushed in to see it and didn't care enough to return and didn't care enough to tell other people to go see it. If this film hadn't opened so well on Friday, you can say, yeah, it didn't have any stars, which it didn't have. But still, that if you use that analogy, it shouldn't have done so well on a Friday.
well, because it's based on a book, so
Yeah.
there's fans of the books who went and watched the movie, watched the big screen adaptation. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's completely unknown, right? The movie. It's just that hey, maybe it
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
feel
Yeah,
outside of that core group.
yeah,
Of people
exactly.
people.
That's what I mean. Exactly. That's why I'm saying that the only people that this film appealed to were the people who read the books, or it was riding on the coattail of the Fault in Our Stars.
The movie can only drop from here, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it experienced like a high 50s.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's
close to
gonna be.
60.
I think it's gonna be a lot more because when films have this kind of drop off from a Friday to Saturday, it's like horror film level. I could see it doing 70 or 75% drop off
Wow.
next week.
Even in horror films, it's like 60s.
Yeah, horror films are usually 60s.
70s is like a complete forget about thing. It's like, yeah, get it out of theaters as soon as possible kind of drop off.
Yeah, with horror films, there are a couple that has this kind of Friday to Saturday drop off, and by the next weekend, it's like 70 to 75%. So we'll see if it follows that pattern. I have a feeling that it probably will.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to number 7. Inside Out made 7.4 million. Continues to hold up pretty well. 36% drop off. It's made 320 million so far. It's the third highest grossing film in Pixar's library. Worldwide is at 550 million. Like we said in previous weeks, it brings Pixar back to the elite group of animation studios.
Inside Out is also kind of like a different Pixar movie. Before, it seems like it's more geared toward the male audience. What Inside Out is, it's kind of like it's more balanced.
Okay.
Something like Cars, Toy Story.
Guy.
You have these like action scenes. You have male-dominated characters.
Right.
And Inside Out, you have like the two female leads, right? And then Anger is the side character, and then I think the Fear is also this other side characters, right? It's tending toward more like female focus. At least for this movie, it's not as male dominated as the previous Pixar movies.
Right. I think they tried to do this with Brave, but that didn't work out too well because they fired the director midway through. But it worked out this time. Yeah, that's a good point. It is more of a more geared towards a woman audience than a female audience than a male audience.
Right. So we've been talking about Inside Out for quite a while.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Number 8, Jurassic World, 6.9 million over the weekend, a 39 or nearly 40% drop from its previous week, and so far made 623 million in 7 weeks, and its worldwide figure is 1.5 billion.
It's the third highest grossing film ever, domestically and worldwide, behind James Cameron's Avatar and Titanic. And like we said before, no one expected this. I know it's ironic to say no one saw this coming, even though it's a bunch of dinosaurs.
No, which is fine. Which is fine. I mean, like
Yeah.
we like surprises. It's just that hey, Jurassic World is a huge movie. I like I say, people are just ready for more dinosaur movies, and Jurassic World just filled this niche. And I wouldn't be surprised if other studios follow along to create their own dinosaur movies. Maybe with Dwayne the Rock Johnson in it.
Right. It makes you wonder why the other studios haven't done any dinosaur movies since the first Jurassic Park opened. Why haven't other studios made their own dinosaur movies?
I don't know. It's just like whenever they do dinosaurs, it's more like King Kong or Godzilla, but
Yeah.
not dinosaurs.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why. I mean, why can't another studio go and make another dinosaur movie?
No clue. You would think, like if this was
Yeah.
Hong Kong, right?
Yeah. You would use it would be you would have a dinosaur movie every other month.
Yeah, it would be Jackie Chan versus
Dinosaurs,
right? Yeah.
And then Jet Li
T-Rex.
versus dinosaurs, and
Right,
then Donnie
right.
Yen versus dinosaurs.
Right, and all the movies will have the same plot.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 9, Mr. Holmes, starring Ian McKellen. It made 2.8 million this week. Its first appearance on the top 10. And after 2 weeks of release, it's made 6.4 million. It's
Wasn't this the second appearance in the top 10? I think it was there last week.
Last week it was at number 11.
Oh, and I believe the actual pushed it down.
Oh, the actual, okay, all right. Which is pretty good for indie film.
Yes. Really, I don't know what else to say about this. It's one of those indie film that's stars Ian McKellen that's probably gonna get nominated for something, right?
Yeah.
This movie is kind of like Woman in Gold with Helen Mirren.
Except it's way better review. It's on Rotten Tomatoes is 87%. So very well review. It'll have a better chance during award season than Woman in Gold, I think.
Right. And this is also it has a brand like it's about Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, right.
So there's that going for it.
Yeah, but it's not going to do as well as a Woman in Gold.
Right.
I'm still surprised that film ended up making like around 30 million.
Well, like we say, there is a Helen Mirren genre.
Yeah, right. Just like there's a Meryl Streep genre, right?
Yeah. There are people who, when people say that
they're well respected.
Yeah, they would pay money to see those actors do anything. Well, they're that. They reach the level. Like Helen Mirren is one of those actors where people would pay to see her be in anything.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Moving on to number 10.
Terminator Genisys. At 2.4 million this week, is continuing its steep drop off. 56% this week. After 4 weeks, it's made 86 million. Doesn't look like it'll get to 100 million. And at a budget of 155 million, it would have to do really well overseas to make a profit. So far worldwide, it is made 305 million, which is solid. And it hasn't opened in China yet. So like we said last week, you were telling me, is this good enough for a sequel? Even without China, it's barely good enough for sequels because Pacific Rim, like I said last week, which cost around 200 million.
Right.
It disappointed domestically, but worldwide, it made 400 million, which is 2 times its budget. And they're going with a sequel. And Terminator Genisys is worldwide. It's made twice its budget, and that's without China. And this is the kind of film that does really well in China. I could see this making 100 million in China. So I think it opens in China on August 23rd, sometime in late August, and the studio will be looking at that opening weekend. And if it opens well, then people will see the second and third planned movies, which I expect it to do. I think in the last couple of weeks, people were saying that, hey, the sequels are probably not going to happen, but based on its worldwide performance, I think it will.
Yeah, like I say, this is one of those movies where that they need to do sequels. I mean, not need. I mean, if the financial works out, because like the rights reverts back to James Cameron in 2019, and and you brought up the point that contracts normally are 5 years. But this one is different. This is a copyright version where like after 35 years it goes back to the creator. So Cameron will get it no matter what, unless there's a separate deal involved. So if the money is good, I mean, if it's there, I think they will make a sequel, because like I think they paid around 20 million for the rights. To make that back, they need to to make more movies.
Oh dang, 20 million! They got a really good deal.
Well, it was during a bankruptcy, right? It was during a bankruptcy for one of those things, and for one of those companies that was holding on to the rights. 20 million for the rights only, right? And then you have to put money in to make the movie. So you're already 20 million in the hole.
Yeah, but 20 million. I mean, you're talking about Terminator here. A franchise that does hundreds of millions, and worldwide, like $500 million. So 20 million, I feel like that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, but then again, you have to think, without James Cameron or without Arnold Schwarzenegger, will this franchise survive? There were like uncertainties in those aspects, right? And they managed to get Schwarzenegger back.
Yeah, right. The sequel now all depends on its China performance. This is the kind of film that does well in China, so I have high hopes for sequels.
Yeah, that's true. But see, the thing is, this movie wasn't very well reviewed. And even though this movie does well, it doesn't guarantee that the second movie will do well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they might actually lose money on the second movie.
They could.
All right, then we will have to see. I think they will make one.
I'm pretty positive that they will make one, because even at 155 million, it's already made twice that worldwide. And this is the kind of film that also does well on video, because of it has a huge fan base, and just to complete their collection, they'll probably buy this. And it's not, kind
of like Aliens 4. They need to just to complete the collection.
Right, yeah. And to me, I think it was entertaining. Sure, the time travel stuff is very confusing, but if you're looking for entertainment, it's I thought it was entertaining. I don't see people in China having much issues with the time travel elements, because when a film is dubbed, all that stuff will go through their head anyway. And they're looking just for entertainment, and I think this film, it does entertain. So yeah, I see sequels.
Me too. But I'm just saying, sequel will happen, but we'll see if the second movie perform or not. Because Genisys wasn't very well reviewed. Yeah, let's just say it was okay. I think it's kind of like in the sense of like a Terminator 3, where I felt it was okay. It was kind of entertaining. But was it a good movie? Not so.
That's a weird thing about film criticism. At the time Terminator 3 was released, it was actually well regarded. But for some reason, as time passed, people look at it in negative terms. I wonder why that is, because it was directed by a decent director too, John Mastow.
Something.
And he's a decent director, and he did a pretty good job. And the reviews at the time, I remember, was like around 75%. So it was actually kind of well regarded. But when you hear people talk about it now, they talk about it in negative terms, like, hey, that Terminator 3 was awful. And I'm like, was it? For some reason, the critical climate or sentiment on the film has changed within the last decade.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a step down from the first two movies.
Yeah, I think at the time, that's people expected. They weren't expecting something to be as good as the first two films, but they thought it was solid, a solid outing, especially since you don't have James Cameron. But for some reason, after 10 years, people are like, oh, Terminator 3, awful.
Yeah, I think that the narrative is just pretty much like a typical action movie. It's like one of those sequels where it doesn't really do much to further the lore.
Yeah, I wonder if those people felt the same way when Terminator 3 was first released. No, like remember when, like the Star Wars episode, the second Star Wars, when it was first released, critics panned it, saying that hey, this is your typical sequel, and now everyone's like that's the best Star Wars movie.
Compared to the others.
Yeah, even compared to the first one, it's amazing because the way Empires is reviewed right now is completely opposite of when it first came out. When it first came out, most of the critics were saying, "Hey, this is your typical sequel with more," and now they're like, "Hey, that's the most atypical sequel you can have."
Well,
It's brilliant.
let's put it this way: Empire Strikes Back aged better than the other movies, especially
Yeah,
the third one. Like it was very polished, right? And I mean, watching it now, you think, wow, they actually put some money on this. Whereas if you
right.
watch like Return of the Jedi, it's like, oh my god, it didn't age well. The sets
Yeah,
were outdated, costumes, lighting, everything looks kind of amateurish.
yeah, yeah. And maybe this is the thing with Terminator Genisys. At the time, people felt like it's a solid movie, but over time, it just didn't age well.
Well, the feeling I get is that people kind of ignore Terminator 3.
Mhm.
That they agree that like the fourth one was terrible, but 3 just kind of
Yeah.
didn't exist.
Okay, should we move on to next week's films?
Yeah, let's go move on to openings. We have the new Vacation sequel slash reboot opening Wednesday on July 29th. And we have the new Mission Impossible movie, which is subtitled Rogue Nation, with Tom Cruise returning to play Ethan Hunt.
Let's start with Vacation because Mission Impossible will probably soak up most of our time, and we might
dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
Dun. Well, let's get our mood going. All right, Vacation.
Let me see. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes. There's one review, and it is rotten.
Okay, Vacation stars Ed Helms, Leslie Mann, Christina Applegate, Chris Hemsworth, Chevy Chase. The original stars Chevy Chase, right? He took his family to Wally World, a theme park, right? And Ed Helms play his Chevy Chase's grown-up son who is taking his own family to Wally World. And a lot of things happen. Comedy happens on the road and on the misadventures. This movie is kind of like the 21 Jump Street movies. It's kind of like they poke fun at itself. Remember in the promos they say, nobody cares about 21 Jump Street, etc. This one pokes fun at itself, like, this vacation will stand on its own, kind of thing.
Right.
So it's kind of wink at the people. At the audience.
Yeah, right. I'm not familiar with the original film. I haven't seen it, so.
And you probably have one of those 80 movies. It probably played on TV somehow. You probably caught it, and you probably forgot about it.
Right. And Ed Helms, although he's done some solid films with him in the lead, they weren't big box office draws. I think they have done well based on their small budget. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with this film too. I don't see this film eventually grossing total, 30 million. So my prediction is 5 million.
Total 30 million?
Yeah, I don't see the film making anywhere near 30 million total.
Wow. I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of hard to believe. Okay.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers want this Vacation reboot to be kind of like We're the Millers. I think the original movie made, I think, about 61 million domestic. I think they're hoping We're the Millers. I mean, the new Vacation movie will be kind of like We're the Millers, which makes 150 million domestic lifetime, right? And I'm sure people kind of envision kind of like say a 21 Jump Street rebootish kind of thing where there will be more vacations coming out of this. I could see this movie doing a 15 to 20 over the weekend. No, it's opening on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Wednesday openers are kind of tough to predict, but it's total for over Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I could see it doing 35.
Oh, that much? Yeah, I don't see it at all because
over 5 days. Over 5 days.
I mean, Ed Helms seems to be one of those comedians who's good in an ensemble, but he's not a big enough star to lead a film to even a decent opening. Like the films like Cedar Rapids only made like 7 million total. His other film, Jeff Who Lives at Home, made like 4 million total. And the only films where it's done great is when he's part of an ensemble and he's not the top bill star, like with the Millers, the Hangover films. Every film that he's done where he gets top billing, they haven't, in terms of total box office, they don't even get to 10 million. So I don't see Vacation doing anywhere near that. It might not be one of those films that people are clamoring for a reboot. You know, I can see people going, "Hey, we need a Star Wars reboot," but you know, I don't think a lot of people are going, "Yeah, you need to reboot Vacation." So I'm saying 3-day, just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know, in the 5 million range, 10 million tops. No, not even 10 million. But we'll see.
We'll see. Well,
you're kind of high on it, though.
I'm kind of high. Well, yeah. It's 35 over 5 days, so not that
35 million. That's pretty. I think if it makes 35 million after 5 days, you know, it's pretty successful.
Yeah, I think it'll do well. Okay, unlike Pixels, right? This one, you are kind of like Pixels. Excuse me. This one kind of banks on nostalgia, right? You know, it's a comedy. Let's see what other comedies is in the in theaters right now. Trainwreck.
But I don't think Ed Helms has that kind of draw to get that kind of opening.
Yeah, but he's kind of riding high on his Hangover movies, kind of. You know.
No, I mean,
and we're the Millers. Hold on. Let me build my case, right? You know, and then there's Christina Applegate, who's kind of a regular on TV right now, and in the movies, people know who she is. And hey, Chris Hemsworth, Thor.
Yeah, and you know what else?
What else?
Chris Hemsworth's films. Oh, number one, he's not even the top bill. He's more of a side character in the movie. Mm-hmm. But outside the Thor and Avenger films, his films haven't done well at all. And Christina Applegate hasn't opened a film or has ever opened a film at all. And Ed Helms hasn't opened any film. So you have three guys who hasn't opened any films at all. And the one that can open a film, and even at that, hasn't opened a film like above like 10 million outside of the Thor, outside of the comic book movies. And he's a third-tier character in the film. So, I mean, my 5 million for 3 days might be a little low, but I don't see it making 35 million over 5 days. But we'll see next week.
We'll see. There's laughs in this movie, right? You know, these people are kind of likable. I see, and we'll have to see. I think, but I think it'll do better than your 5 million over the weekend.
Yeah,
it would be really, really surprising. I mean, you have to work to open that low. I don't see how you can open that low.
It is opening super wide though, so you know.
5 million over the weekend. That's I don't know for a movie with this kind of awareness. We'll see. You might be right because like people could rush out to watch it.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, Mission Impossible, or watch it on Wednesday and say, hey, you know, it's not as funny as I thought, and then and over the weekend just drop off like a rock.
Yeah,
could be.
Yep, could be. Let's move on to the main film.
All right,
Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation.
The reason why Vacation is open on Wednesday.
Hey, yeah.
Out of its way.
Yeah, true. Wow, the reviews have been amazing. On Rotten Tomatoes, 30 reviews so far and 97%.
I think this movie already opened overseas.
But still, wow, that's amazing. That's kind of in line with the previous one, the Brad Bird directed one, which kind of resurrected the franchise. So what do you think? I'm thinking it's in the summer, it's riding high from the previous film. I'm gonna go with 70 million.
Wow. I was going low. I think about 50.
We're kind of on the extremes here. Well, you're kind of in the middle. I'm on the extreme end. Vacation 5 million. Mission Impossible 70 million.
I'm not sure if Mission Impossible is a 70 million opener. I don't think it's previous. It's possible. It's possible, right?
I think Mission Impossible 2 opened pretty well. I think the third one didn't open as well because of the Tom Cruise jumping the couch.
Yeah. Mission Impossible 2 has a 57 opener. Mission Impossible 3 47. Ghost Protocol has a 37-ish, but if you count the limited release, it has also about 40 some million opening as well.
Yeah. So I think this will, because of how well received the previous one was, and how well it did overall, I think that will lead to a bigger opening for this current one. So I'm thinking 70, and it's in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking 70, you're thinking 50, and vacation, I'm thinking 5 million for the 3-day. You're thinking 35 million for 5 days. So we'll see who's going to have to change their names next weekend.
I know it could be, I could be wrong again, like this week, but last weekend. But yeah, the Mission Impossible movies haven't been that huge. The best case is like 50. It could change over time. It could change.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, like the John Woo one, Mission Impossible 2 opened really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mission Impossible 3, because of the couch jumping, didn't do as well. I think that could have affected the fourth one, but the fourth one was actually pretty leggy. It eventually ended up making 209 million total, and it's one of the lower opening of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because it was so well received and because it was well regarded and it was as good a word of mouth, that's gonna translate into this one. And so far the reviews are fantastic.
You could get close. I mean, it might end up making somewhere in the middle because the holdovers have been dropping and the movies last week haven't been performing. So there's space, there's room for Mission Impossible to take what's there.
Right. Yeah, we'll see next week. If I'm not here for the podcast, that means I'm way off.
It's possible we could just let it record in dead air.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Then we'll come back next week.
All right, we'll come back. Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks for listening.